sometimes it's useful to change from one unit to another, even in the metric system with these convenient units. For instance, if you're talking about the fraction of a millimeter, at some point you've talked about that you're working in that range so much, you might as well start talking in terms of microns, that sort of thing. So say, for instance, if you're looking at 0.012 millimeters, this could be easily rewritten as 12. Okay. Now, these kinds of conversions are can become intuitive, and there are a number of ways to conceptualize them. I'm going to show 3 ways of thinking of it. Use the one that makes the most sense for you and in the context you're working in. All right, so one way you can conceive of this unit conversion between different units in the metric system is this dollars and cents analogy, and this really works best for ranges that are right next to each other. So, for instance, millimeters and microns, right, or microns and nanometers. It doesn't work so great for if you're going from, say, nanometers all the way up to meters or something like that, but it works great for those ones that are next to each other. So, for instance, if I have 1.74 millimeters, I can look at, okay, I have 1 whole millimeter and now I've got the change afterward. Now, here's where the analogy limps a little bit, right? Because, of course, there are 100 cents in a dollar. There are, this has that weakness that we're actually looking at 1,000 microns for every millimeter, so that, it's 1 whole millimeter and 740 thousandths of a millimeter, or 740 microns. So if we want to convert this to microns, we can see right off the bat that this 740 is in microns, and well, we have just one place beyond it, so 1,740 microns, dollars and cents, if you will. Okay, so it was not terribly different from, say, if I had, $1.74. How many cents are there? Oh, 174. All right. Going the other direction works similarly. So if I have 43 microns, if I remember that there are 1,000 microns in a millimeter, that this is the change, if you will, in our dollars analogy, then I can say, in millimeters, this would be 0.043 millimeters. Again, these work best for those close sets of units. Here's another pair of units. If I have, let's say I wanted to convert 43.54 microns to nanometers. What's the value in nanometers? Well, microns and nanometers are next to each other, 10 to the negative 6, 10 to the negative 9, right? So here we'd be looking at this here is nanometers. That would be 540 nanometers, and these would be the places after, right? So we have 43,540 nanometers. All right. A slight extension, I suppose, if you will, of this concept goes to the nanometers angstroms level. But of course, just remember that while there are 1,000 microns in a millimeter or 1,000 nanometers in a micron, now we only have 10 angstroms per nanometer. That's just an important thing to keep in mind. So if you have 14 nanometers, that's 14.0 in this sense, and if we're thinking about the dollars and cents here. So then if you're going to look at, you want to do angstroms, you want the number of angstroms, that would be 140. I think this place here would be the 1 angstrom place. Another way you could conceive of the way that you're converting between units in the metric system is this order of magnitude idea. And this is going to rely heavily on your remembering the powers of 10 associated with each of those prefixes. So 10 to the negative 9 is nano, 10 to the negative 6 is micro, 10 to the negative 3rd is milli, And I suppose you could go ahead and add these ones here as well. 10 to the negative second is centi. I'm gonna leave it there for now. So if you're interested in, say, 500 microns in terms of meters, that is to say, how many meters are there in 500 microns? Your first question should be, am I going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, or a smaller unit to a larger unit? Here we're talking about a millionth of a meter to a meter, definitely going to a larger unit. That means for that equal to be true, you better have a much smaller number. All right. A lot of people like to they memorize which direction they're going to be moving the decimal point and so forth. And I'm not too fond of that, since it tends to get a little garbled in one's mind. But remembering that that equals had better be true, and you're going to a larger unit, well, that must mean a smaller number, right? Say, for instance, we know that if I'm looking at 144 inches, if I want that in feet, well, feet are much bigger, so I better have a smaller number, right? Therefore, this makes sense, right? Same idea here. We better have a smaller number. So that tells us which way to move the decimal point, right? Smaller number. Oh, and how many places is all wrapped up in those powers of 10. So if we know that 10 to the negative sixth micron is associated with that micro, and we don't have any prefix here, therefore we have 6 orders of magnitude difference. So we get that, right? Moving this decimal point 6 places to the left. Now here's another example then. If we had, say, 500 nanometers, and we wanted to convert that to microns. All right, so another example of going from a smaller unit to a larger unit. This better be a smaller number, but how many orders of magnitude? Now let's consider those prefixes. Since we actually have a prefix on this side, now we need to think about in terms of how many difference. Yes, how many orders of magnitude difference is there, so that we know how far to move our decimal point. Again, the direction based on whether we need a smaller or larger number. So bigger unit, smaller number, and here we have 10 to the negative ninth. Here we have 10 to the negative sixth. 3 orders of magnitude difference. So we'll move the decimal to the left 3 spaces. Like so. All right. Now let's consider, say I want to go from 14 angstroms to, I want to express that in microns. All right. This is 10 to the negative 10th meters, and 10 to the negative 6th meters. Bigger unit, so I better have a smaller number. And how many orders of magnitude difference? 4. Now for an example, we're going to be going to a smaller unit. We should have some of those as well. So say I want to express 10.7 meters in nanometers. So if going to a larger unit means a smaller number, going to a smaller unit means a larger number. In this case, a much larger number. This is 10 to the negative 0, 10 to the 0, if you will, and 10 to the negative 9. So 9 orders of magnitude. So that means we're going to move to the right to get a bigger number, and 9 spaces, so that we accommodate the order of magnitude. 10,700,000,000. So for one more example, let's do .54 microns to angstroms. All right, so again, we're going from a large unit to a smaller unit. Therefore, we should have a much bigger number, and the order of magnitude difference is, as before up here, 4. So that we get 4, and then number 1, 2, 3, 4.